I'll never forget the sound of her shrill voice echoing through my ranch that afternoon. A voice that would soon spark a scandal bigger than our entire neighborhood ever imagined. Karen, the self-appointed queen of our HOA, thought she ran the place. She policed mailbox flags, fined neighbors for crooked flower beds, and even threatened to tow my old Ford pickup when I parked it 2 inches over the line. But this time, she crossed into dangerous territory. A place no one in their right mind would dare touch. I had a safe tucked away in my barn. A plain, rusted box that didn't look like much. But behind that steel door was something that didn't belong to me at all. It belonged to the FBI. Years ago, I'd made a promise to keep it hidden, locked up tight until they came for it. No questions asked. Karen didn't know that. She just saw something she thought she could use to tighten her grip on the rest of us. So she snuck into my barn while I was away, armed with a crowbar and a head full of conspiracies about illegal cash stashes and drug money. But as the old hinges squealed open, she triggered a silent alarm I didn't even know still worked, one that pinged a federal line straight out of my hands. When I pulled up, her SUV was parked sideways in the driveway, the back hatch wide open like she was loading up my secrets for herself. She spotted me and dialed 911, screaming that I was a dangerous criminal hiding stolen goods on my ranch. Little did she know, the people on their way weren't local deputies, they were men in black suits who'd spent years hunting the very secrets she was trying to steal. I stood there, boots covered in dry dust, watching Karen pacing in front of my barn door like she owned the place. But this wasn't her HOA meeting. And when the unmarked Suburbans rolled up behind her, I saw the panic wash over her face for the first time. The real question now wasn't whether Karen would get her way, it was whether she'd walk away at all. Karen had always been the type to poke her nose where it didn't belong, but her obsession with my ranch started months ago. Right after my father passed away and left me the place. Maybe it was the long, lonely drives up the gravel path that made her feel shut out. Or maybe it was just the safe, that rusty, out-of-place box bolted into the corner of my barn that she couldn't stop staring at whenever she dropped by for inspections. I remember the first time she tried to question me about it. She showed up in her little golf cart, clipboard in hand, pretending she was checking on my fence line. But the real target was always the barn. She wanted to know why a single man needed a safe bigger than his truck's bed, why I spent nights out there sometimes, and why I kept a security camera pointed at the entrance. She asked with that sweet but sharp tone that always felt like a threat wrapped in a smile. What she didn't know, what no one knew, was that the safe didn't even hold anything that belonged to me. When my dad retired, he took one last job helping a federal task force store classified documents that couldn't risk being leaked. Small-town ranches make good hiding places for things too sensitive to leave in city vaults. When he got sick, I promised him I'd keep the safe just the way it was. No questions asked. And that's exactly what I did. But secrets have a way of rotting people from the inside out. And for someone like Karen, not knowing was worse than any fine or neighborhood drama she'd ever cooked up. I'd hear rumors at the local diner that she'd been telling people I was running an off-the-books gun stash, or maybe laundering money for a biker gang out in the hills. I didn't pay much mind. Small-town talk dies fast. Or at least I thought it did. When she finally got the nerve to break in, she didn't come alone. She dragged 2 of her HOA lackeys with her, guys who'd never stood up to her once in their lives. They'd parked their truck behind the barn, trying to stay out of sight. But they didn't know the whole place was wired up, old tech my dad had installed when he first agreed to hide the safe. It fed straight to the Bureau's field office, pinging them the second that door popped. So when Karen's panicked voice hit 911, telling the operator she'd found a stash of stolen documents and possible explosives, she didn't realize she was basically confessing to a federal break-in. By the time the black SUVs rolled up, I could see the cracks in her mask. She was standing there trying to wave down the men in suits like they'd come to back her up. Instead, they ignored her completely, eyes locked on the safe, their voices clipped and serious. I wanted to step in to tell her to shut her mouth and go home. But I couldn't. This was bigger than HOA rules and petty fines. This was the moment where all her years of controlling everyone else's secrets turned back on her. And in that dusty afternoon sun, I realized something. I wasn't the one in danger anymore. Karen's face had that pinched, desperate look she always wore when her power started slipping. But this time, the stakes were way beyond petty parking tickets or mailbox fines. As the federal agents stepped out of their Suburbans, dark suits and tactical earpieces in place, I could almost feel the way the air shifted around her. She tried to stand her ground, planting herself between them and the safe like she was guarding neighborhood treasure. One agent, tall with a military posture, didn't even glance at her. He locked eyes with me instead, and in that moment, I saw what they'd really come for. It wasn't Karen's accusations. It wasn't even me. It was whatever my father had hidden all these years ago, tucked away behind 3 inches of steel and my good intentions. Meanwhile, the 2 HOA lackeys hovered near the barn door like kids caught stealing candy. One of them, Pete, a retired insurance salesman who'd done whatever Karen told him for years, kept wringing his baseball cap in his hands, eyes darting from Karen to the agents. He'd always bragged that siding with Karen kept him in the inner circle, but now he looked ready to fold at the slightest push. But the real twist came when Agent Harris, that's the name stitched on his badge, asked me if I'd opened the safe yet. I told him the truth. I hadn't. I didn't even know the full story of what was inside. My father had made sure I couldn't open it alone. 2 keys, 2 combinations, and the second part of the code was held by the Bureau. For my dad, secrecy was loyalty. Karen didn't like that answer. She snapped that I was lying, that she'd seen documents with government seals, that I was clearly hiding evidence that endangered the neighborhood. Her voice cracked when she yelled about how the entire ranch should belong to the HOA anyway, that it was an eyesore, an old man's stubborn dream that didn't fit in her picture-perfect community. That's when the agents turned to her. Calm, collected, but the questions came fast. Why was she inside my barn? Why was she trying to pry open a federal safe without a warrant? Did she understand the charges she might face for tampering with classified property? Her face went white, the same color as the binder she always carried door to door when she fined neighbors for weeds or loose shutters. In the chaos, I noticed something I hadn't before. One of the agents slipped me a look, a signal that there was more to this than just recovering old files. Apparently, someone on the inside had leaked word about the safe's location. That's how Karen even knew where to look. The question clawed at the back of my mind: who tipped her off? Was it someone in the Bureau? Someone in town? Pete, still twisting his hat, started mumbling apologies, whispering that Karen told him they'd get compensation if they found anything valuable. The other guy, Mark, shuffled closer to me and asked if he should lawyer up. In that moment, the power balance flipped completely. Karen's empire of neighborhood fear was crumbling right in front of her, and she was the only one who couldn't see it yet. But as the agents moved to secure the barn, I caught sight of a black sedan parked way out by the fence line. Not the Bureau's vehicles, something else, someone watching. A chill ran down my spine. If Karen was just a pawn, then someone bigger was playing a dangerous game on my land. And I had no idea how far they'd go to crack open the truth my father died protecting. For a moment, time felt frozen inside that old barn, dust swirling in beams of sunlight, the heavy steel safe like a buried truth no one wanted to claim. Karen's voice was still echoing, but the words had lost their edge. Her lackeys had already stepped away from her, each shrinking behind the agents as if distance alone might save them from the trouble they'd helped stir up. But I couldn't keep my eyes off that black sedan by the fence line. Whoever was inside hadn't moved, just a dark shape behind tinted glass, engine idling in the June heat. I felt the old rancher in me wanting to grab my shotgun from the truck. But this wasn't my fight anymore. If my father had trusted the FBI with this, I had to trust them too, even if it felt like I was standing in the middle of a trap my old man had set and forgotten to tell me about. Agent Harris stepped closer, voice lowered so only I could hear him. "You see that car?" he asked. I nodded. "We've had a leak. Somebody told her where to find this safe. But whoever's in that sedan didn't want her to break in, they wanted a scene. Noise. Press coverage, maybe. They knew the alarm would bring us here." His eyes darted to Karen, who was now demanding to speak to the sheriff, trying to wave her phone around like it could erase federal charges. But the agents weren't even looking at her anymore. They were focused on me, on the code my father left behind, the key I'd never used, the promise I'd made when I didn't even know what was at stake. Harris's voice hardened. "We need to open it before they do." My chest tightened. "I thought you had the other combination." He shook his head. "Your father changed it before he died. We think he left instructions for you. That old box in my dad's study. The one I hadn't touched since the funeral." My mind raced back to the night I'd come home from the hospital, found that envelope with my name on it, and shoved it in a drawer because I wasn't ready for more goodbyes. Could it really hold the final piece of a code the Bureau had spent years guarding? I felt the pressure building in my skull, Karen screaming that this was her neighborhood, the agents moving fast to block off the barn, Pete and Mark quietly trying to distance themselves from the mess. Outside, I heard the crunch of tires on gravel. The sedan was gone, vanished down the dirt road like a ghost that had gotten what it came for. A shiver ran down my back. Was it a warning? Or a signal that this was just the beginning? Suddenly, Agent Harris's phone crackled. A voice came through, tense, clipped. "We've got chatter. Local reporter's been tipped off. Possible drone overhead. We need that safe open now." Karen's eyes widened. A drone? Press coverage? Her worst nightmare, being dragged out of her suburban throne and dumped in a federal scandal under the hot Texas sun. She lunged at me, grabbing my arm, voice trembling. "Tell them you didn't authorize this. Tell them you gave me permission. You have to help me, I did this for the neighborhood." I shook her off. I'd spent years trying to keep my head down, minding my own business while Karen pecked at everyone else's. Now she was trapped by her own hunger for control, and all I felt was the bitter taste of regret that my father's final wish had become the fuse for someone else's chaos. The agents fanned out, securing the barn doors. Another stepped outside to watch the perimeter. In the distance, thunderheads rolled across the sky, promising a summer storm that would hit just as hard as what was brewing inside. I knew what I had to do. "I'll get the envelope," I said. "Stay here. Keep her inside." I jogged toward the house, boots pounding the packed dirt, heart racing like I was 18 again, chasing cattle in a spring flood. I tore open the old study door, flung aside dusty boxes, and there it was, my name in my father's handwriting, the seal unbroken. Thunder cracked in the distance, rattling the windows as I ripped the envelope open and scanned the page inside. A string of numbers, half-finished, and a line scrawled underneath in my father's unsteady hand. "Not everyone who knocks is your friend. Trust the storm." Outside, the wind kicked up, slamming the screen door shut behind me. Back at the barn, Agent Harris stood waiting, palm out for the paper that could end this or blow it wide open. In that instant, I knew the storm wasn't just coming. It was already here, and we were standing right in the eye of it. I should have known my father wouldn't make anything simple, not even from beyond the grave. The paper in my hand felt like it weighed 100 pounds as I stepped back out onto the porch, the wind tearing at the corners while the sky roared with thunder that hadn't yet let loose. I could see Harris waiting at the barn door, his agents tense, eyes scanning the tree line for whoever was still watching. When I got back inside the barn, Karen was pacing like a caged animal. She must have heard the update over the agent's radio. Local reporters already setting up on the edge of the county road, cameras pointed straight at her little kingdom crumbling to the ground. She had once ruled over HOA fines and garden gnomes, now she was about to be the face of a federal crime scene. But the twist that hit me hardest wasn't Karen's downfall, it was that my father hadn't just hidden the code. He'd hidden a confession. Agent Harris motioned for me to read the letter aloud. I hesitated, glancing at Karen. She tried to snatch it from my hand, her last desperate attempt to keep control. But an agent stepped between us, guiding her back. Her eyes darted around, like she could find a crack to slip through if she just looked hard enough. I cleared my throat, the paper shaking. "If you're reading this, they've come for the safe. There's a reason I kept it out of their hands for so long." Harris's brow furrowed. "Your father was holding back from us?" I kept going. "What's inside isn't just paperwork. It's evidence that a mole inside the bureau sold intel to foreign agents 25 years ago. They framed innocent men, good men, to protect themselves. Some of those men died for secrets that never should have been buried." Pete and Mark exchanged horrified glances. Karen went pale as old bones. She stumbled back, whispering, No, you don't understand. I thought I was protecting." But she cut herself off, eyes wide, lips trembling. Harris stepped forward, voice low but cold. "Did you know what was in there? Did someone tell you to find it?" Karen looked like a puppet with its strings cut. They said it was stolen HOA funds. That if I got it back, they'd clear my debts, make me president of the regional board, even get me a seat at the county commission. I didn't know it was FBI, I swear. My mind reeled. Karen, the self-crowned queen of petty neighborhood politics, had been someone's useful idiot. But who'd fed her this story? And what about the car at the fence line? I felt the old barn shrink around me as the realization hit. Karen wasn't the real threat. She was the distraction. Harris called out to one of his men, "Secure the perimeter. We've got another player in this game." Right then, a single gunshot cracked through the humid air, a warning shot from the trees behind the barn. One of the agents shouted, ducking behind an old tractor. Karen screamed, dropping to the dusty floor. I felt my pulse slam into my ears as a second shot struck the barn door, splintering with just inches from the safe. Harris grabbed my arm, dragging me behind the safe's thick steel door. They want what's inside. We have to open it now. If they get here first, they'll destroy every name, every piece of evidence your father risked everything to protect. Another shot rang out, this time closer. They were moving in, using the storm as cover. The wind howled through the barn's broken slats, rattling the tools on the walls. The agents took positions, eyes trained on the shadows beyond the open door. Karen, still curled on the ground, looked up at me for once, no threats, no smug grin, just raw terror. They're going to kill me, aren't they? She whispered. I almost pitied her. Almost. But then I remembered the years she spent tearing my neighbors apart, the fines, the gossip, the power she wielded like a weapon, and how easily she traded her little fiefdom for the promise of more. I turned to Harris, pressing the slip of paper into his hand. Let's finish this. Before the storm gets in. And as the rain finally broke open over the ranch, we spun the dial on the safe, hoping what waited inside wouldn't bury us all. The safe door gave one last metallic groan before swinging open, its hinges protesting like they'd been holding back the past for far too long. The storm outside slammed rain against the barn roof, each drop echoing like a warning that whatever was hidden in that steel box was about to change everything. Agent Harris reached in first. He pulled out a battered metal case, smaller than I expected, heavy, though, judging by the way his gloved hands braced under its weight. He cracked it open with a flick of a master key. Inside, folders wrapped in plastic, stamped with faded federal seals. But the real kicker was the stack of old cassettes, each one labeled with names I'd never heard, but Harris had. He scanned the top folder, eyes narrowing. Testimonies. Tapes of the mole setting up entire families to take the fall. Your dad, he wasn't just a witness. He was the last loose end they never tied up. A sharp crack rang out, another shot, closer this time. The agents ducked instinctively, pushing me to the ground behind the safe. I heard a scuffle at the barn door, a shout muffled by the wind. Then Harris barked into his radio, suspect at the west tree line. Do not let them breach. Karen, still huddled in the hay, whimpered like a child. She'd spent years prying into everyone's lives, but now she was the one laid bare, a pawn caught between the truth and the lies she'd helped spread. She looked up at me, her mascara streaked by sweat and fear. Please, tell them I didn't know. But I couldn't answer her. My eyes were fixed on the tape labeled in my father's neat handwriting, insurance, play if they find you. My hands shook as I slipped it into the old recorder Harris handed me. The tape hissed, then my dad's voice, worn but clear, filled the barn. If you're hearing this, I did my job. The ones who sold us out, they'll come for this. They'll come for you. Don't let them bury what we gave our lives to protect. Trust the storm. Outside, the gunfire fell away into silence, replaced by the crackle of radios and the pounding rain. Harris stepped forward, voice calm but resolute. We have what we need. We'll get you protection. Karen will answer for her part. But the real fight's with the men who thought they could cover this up forever. I glanced back at the open safe. The secrets that almost tore this ranch apart now finally in the hands of the people who could make them count. Karen was hauled to her feet by 2 agents. Her protests drowned out by the storm's roar. For the first time in years, the barn felt lighter. My father's burden, the truth he'd hidden in this patch of Texas dirt, was finally out in the open. I stepped out into the rain, letting it wash the dust and sweat from my face. Somewhere behind me, the safe door slammed shut for good. And as the thunder rolled over the fields, I knew this place, my father's place, could finally breathe again. The rain fell hard through the night, washing the dust and the secrets clean off the old ranch. Long after the last black SUV disappeared down the gravel road, I found myself standing alone by the barn, staring at the grooves where my father's safe had been bolted to the concrete. It looked so ordinary now, just an empty corner in a drafty barn. Funny how something so small could hold a storm big enough to swallow an entire neighborhood. Karen was gone before dawn. The bureau took her away in the back seat of a plain sedan, no fanfare, no HOA clipboard in hand. Word would spread quick. By breakfast, folks at the diner would be swapping stories. Some would pity her. Others would laugh that the queen of lawn fines and mailbox citations had gotten herself tied up in federal espionage. Me? I felt nothing for her anymore. She made her choices, and for once, the consequences didn't skip her doorstep. But as the clouds thinned and the first pink light of sunrise broke over the pastures, a different kind of weight settled in my chest. My father had spent the last years of his life pretending this place was just a ranch. Cattle, fences, cracked porch steps. But in the quiet of the morning, I understood why he never told me the full truth. He didn't want me to spend my life looking over my shoulder, waiting for men in black cars to crawl out of the shadows. I walked back up to the house, past the muddy ruts from the agent's trucks, past the bent wildflowers along the fence line. The study door creaked open, same as always. But the smell felt different now. The ghosts in there weren't secrets anymore, just memories. On my father's old desk, I laid out the note I'd kept folded in my pocket all night. His handwriting, so firm even near the end, trust the storm. I guess that was his way of telling me some truths can't stay buried. Even when it hurts, even when it cracks open every part of you that wants to believe the world is simple, you have to trust that the storm will carry away the rot, leave behind something worth growing again. A few days later, I sat on the porch, boots up on the railing, the smell of rain-soaked cedar drifting through the fields. Pete and Mark, Karen's old lackeys, showed up, hats in hand, eyes down. They asked if I'd forgive them for what they did. I told them forgiveness wasn't mine to hand out, but the fence they busted while sneaking around my barn was theirs to fix. Small-town justice, I guess. Life didn't go back to normal overnight. The Bureau still calls now and then. Some prosecutor in D.C. wants to drag those old traitors into the light, maybe finally clear the names of the men my father tried to protect. I don't know if they'll ever get the justice they deserve, but at least their stories won't rot away in a steel box under some nosy neighbor's control. Sometimes I catch myself looking out at the far fence line, half expecting that black sedan to come back. But the road stays empty. The storm came and went, and it took the worst with it. People like Karen think they can own everything, the view, the rules, the silence of your own land. But they never understand one simple truth: this land remembers. It remembers who tended it, who betrayed it, who stood guard when nobody else would. If there's one lesson I'll carry forward, it's this: don't ever let someone else's hunger for power steal your peace. Guard what's worth protecting, even if it means standing alone in the rain with secrets you never asked to hold. My father used to say, storms don't destroy you, son. They show you who you really are when the sky clears. He was right. This ranch survived more than Karen's petty greed or some crooked deal in a faraway city. It survived because the truth finally got to breathe. So here I am, storms behind me, sunrise ahead. And if you take anything from my story, let it be this: whatever secrets you keep, make sure they don't end up owning you. If you stuck around till the end, do me a favor, hit that like button, drop your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more real stories from the backroads. Sometimes the biggest storms bring out the truest parts of who we are.